Hello. Today I'm going to do a tutorial in Fusion 360 to show you how I would make a what's called a slimline racing wheel. This is something that's used in model airplane racers. And a friend of mine asked me the other day, he's just, by the way, new to using Fusion, and asked me how I would go about doing this. And trying to describe it to him verbally probably didn't cut it, so I figured I would do a tutorial showing how to do it, and that would clear some things up. So the first thing I'm going to do, we're in Fusion. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to create a sketch by clicking on the Create Sketch icon. And I'm going to choose, you have to choose a plane on what you're going to sketch on. I'm going to choose this vertical plane here because I'm going to draw a profile of the wheel looking at the wheel from the edge. And once I'm done with that profile, I'm going to rotate that around this vertical axis. So you'll see what I mean by that later on. So for now, I'm going to select this plane. And I am going to start by drawing a rectangle here. So I'm going to click on the rectangle, 2-point rectangle icon up here. Click on the origin, come out here. And before I dimension this, let me say, I use metric dimensions. I find dealing with those much easier than dealing with the English measurements. And the dimensions I'm going to use here are probably not 100% accurate for drawing this wheel. Basically, I'm just trying to show you the steps involved with you. If you were going to do this for real, you'd actually have to figure out what you want your thickness of the wheel to be and the diameter and so on. So right now, this first measurement that I'm going to put in here is going to represent basically half the thickness of the hub of the wheel, the center of the wheel. This will make more sense later on as we progress, but I'm going to say that this is 5 millimeters. Then I hit tab over this, and I'm going to say make this wheel about 3 inches, and we're looking at the radius of 3 inches in millimeters, which is about 38 millimeters. So I'm going to make this 38 millimeters. Press enter here. So I guess the next thing which is worthwhile mentioning is let's take a look at this sketch up here. You can see that this is the sketch I'm working on right now, and it has this little lock here. That lock indicates that my sketch at this point is fully constrained. That means everything is locked down, things have dimensions. If I were to try and move this line, I can't. If I hadn't had it locked down, that lock wouldn't be there. And if I didn't have this dimension on here, I'd be able to drag this line up and down. So what you want to do is, as you're sketching anything basically in Fusion 360, it's a good idea to try and keep your sketch fully constrained, because later on we're building a timeline. If we look down here, we're only in the first feature that we started, which is the sketch, but these features are going to continue to build across here as we do more and more things. And if at some point at the very end, when we finish the wheel, let's say you wanted to change the dimension, maybe you wanted to change the radius or the height or something, you could come back into this sketch, edit that sketch, and you can change a dimension. But if you didn't fully constrain everything in here, you might not get the results you're looking for. You might distort the sketch really radically, and the bottom line is the finished product won't look anything like what you're hoping it to resemble. So my point is, we're going to try and keep this fully constrained as we go. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a vertical line. I'm going to go up here, select the line tool, and just about here somewhere, I'm going to just draw a line down 90 degrees and end it here. So now you'll see, I'm going to hit escape to get out of the line tool. But now you'll see my sketch up here is no longer fully constrained. That's because this line is floating in space. I could grab this line and move it anywhere I want. So what I'm going to do is lock this down by dimensioning where that line actually is. So I'm going to hit D on the keyboard for dimension. And then I'm going to dimension it from this point to this point. And this is going to represent the hub section of the wheel. And I'm going to call that 6 millimeters. So let's click on here and say 6 millimeters and enter that. And now you'll see I'm fully constrained again. And I have a line here representing the end of the hub. So next, I'm going to go up here and grab the line tool again. And I'm going to draw a line from here over here somewhere, and this is basically going to represent the taper on the wheel. And again, my stretch is no longer constrained, so I'm going to escape from the line tool, hit D for a dimension again, and now I'm going to dimension from this point to this point, and I'm happy with that. I'll call that 2 millimeters. Okay, so now again, we're fully constrained. So at this point, I have things on here I don't really need. So I'm going to trim off. I'm going to go up to this trim icon. I'm going to trim this line. I'm going to trim this line. And that's about it. And right now, I now have two distinct profiles. This is a profile, and this is a profile over here. A profile means it's fully enclosed with, lines. There's no holes in this anywhere. And a profile is something I can deal with later on. And so that is what I'm looking for here. Although in this case, I'd prefer to have one profile when I revolve this. So what I can do to get to that is I can take this line. And this line is only there for dimensioning. Doesn't really exist in my object that I'm making in the wheel. So I'm going to make that line a construction line by going over to line type here and clicking construction. Now you can see that that has turned into a dotted line. And now if I click in here, I have one profile instead of two. And I have a fully dimensioned sketch, so I'm ready to move on. At this point, you probably want to make a decision on how to proceed. Assuming we're going to 3D print this wheel, right now we're looking at just a portion of it. It's eventually going to be rotated over to this side, and you'd see the whole thing. But this is flat, and we don't have a taper coming up on the bottom. But if you're going to 3D print this thing, this would sit nicely, this flat bottom would sit nicely on your printer bed, and you could print this. You'd have to print two of these and then glue them together. Or, which one I'm going to show you to do, you can build it fully tapered on both sides, in which case when you print it, it's not going to sit very nicely on the bed. So in your printing software, your slicer, you have to tell it you want to use bridging so that it will bridge up this area, support it, and allow you to, print that. So let's go ahead. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a mirror image of this. And in order to do that, I'm going to go up to Create, and I'm going to come down to the Mirror tool here. And the mirror dialog box comes up here, and the first thing it's asking me is what objects do I want to mirror. So I am going to select this line and this line and this line. I'm just clicking on all of these, this line and that line. The next thing I have to do is tell what line I want to mirror this about. So I click here, and this is the line I'm going to mirror this image about, so I click that. And you can see this is what it's going to do. It projected another set of lines down here, and that's what my mirror is going to be. So I'm going to say OK. And now I have a mirror image. And the good part about this is if I change any dimension up here, it'll be mirrored below. So this will always be perfectly symmetrical. Anything I do up here will be replicated down here. Okay, so at this point, I'm pretty much finished with the sketch. I really don't need this line in here. I could make that a construction line, but I'll leave it there for now. And I'm going to go ahead and say Finish Sketch. All right, so at this point, if we look at this from this point of view, you can see this is what we're looking at. Okay, so at this point, I am going to revolve these two profiles about this axis. So the first thing I'm going to do is go up here to create, come down here to revolve, and now it's asking me to select the profile of profiles I want to revolve. So I'm going to select this one and this one. And then I need to come down here and select the axis that I want to revolve around, and that would be this guy. And that's going to show me what it's going to look like, right? And I do want it to create a new body. I'm good with all these. I'm rotating at 360. I'm good with all these defaults. So I say OK. So at this point then we have what it's looking pretty good. Looks like the wheel that we're trying to get. You can see there's a taper top and bottom from the central hub. So we have two things left that we need to do. We're going to want to put a hole through the center for the axle and probably fill it around the edges. So let's take care of doing the hole first. So I'm going to go select this here so I'm looking straight on at the top view. And just for the, my origin turned off here. I'm going to turn the origin on so I can see right where that center point is. And now I'm going to create a sketch. So I'm going to do the create sketch icon. And this time I'm going to select this plane as the plane I want to draw the sketch on. So I select him. And now I'm going to draw a center point circle on that sketch. So I'll select this circle, go down here to the origin, and I'm going to draw a circle out. Now this dimension is going to be basically where your axle is going to pass through here. So I don't know, I think I'll make it 5. But what you would want to do is determine the size of your axle and maybe make it just a little bit bigger, or maybe make it the exact size of your axle and then clean it up with a drill bit afterwards to get the clearance you need. But I'm going to select 5 for demonstration purposes, press enter, and I'm basically finished with this sketch. So I say finish sketch, and we'll take a look at what we have here now. And at this point I'm just going to do an extrude command, and I'm going to pull this profile here down through it with a cut. So I go up here to extrude, select the profile I want to extrude, and that's this guy, and I am going to pull it down. Now you would be tempted to just pull it way down like this, and that would be fine. That would actually, it's doing a cut operation. It assumes that since I'm going down through the material, and that would probably work. But the preferred method of doing this is will pretty much guarantee that whatever, if you go in and change the dimension of the width of this back on that first sketch, and you are, for some reason, maybe you only took this down, say like this far, and you exceeded the width of what this is here, this length, the cut wouldn't go all the way through. So to eliminate that problem, what you would do is go up here to the extent type, change this to an object, and then go underneath here and say this is the object that I want this to extend to. Now no matter what I make the width of this wheel, this will always extend the cut to that bottom plane of the hub there. So I'll say OK to that, and now we got a hole through the wheel. So the last thing we really need to do is maybe put some fillets out here on the edge, make this look a little nicer. Select that one, and I'll select that one, and I don't know, maybe 2 to see if 2 millimeters works. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So I'll say OK to that, and now we have our finished wheel. Basically, it's got the taper we were looking for, it's got the hub, and it's got rounded edges there. So if you save this, and if you ever wanted to go back and change this to a different size wheel, maybe you want a 2-inch wheel instead of a 2.5 or a 4-inch wheel, you would edit this very first feature, this sketch here, right click, say edit sketch, and then you could change any of these dimensions. You know, for example, let's say I want this to be, I don't know, we'll double click on this and make this 6 and say enter. That got bigger, and then maybe I want this to go out a little further. I'll make this 45, say enter. And now when I finish the sketch, it's all applied to this, and now this wheel is bigger. So if you fully constrain that sketch we did, you'd be able to do this and we'll work with no problems. So if you're going to 3D print this, just last part here, this is considered a body at this point. If we drop the bodies down, this is the body, that selects the whole thing. You want to create what's called a mesh file or an STL file. So you would right click on body, come down here and say save as mesh. And then over here you'll see you can accept all these defaults. Just click on OK. And at this point we would name this as like a 3-inch wheel. Maybe I want to spell wheel with an uppercase W. And then it'll save it with an STL extension, which is fine. In my case, I'm going to save it to my computer, and it's going to be placed in this exported projects directory, which is not really where I would normally put this, but just for this demo, I'm going to put it there now. And I'm going to get this message here that it already exists because I ran through this one time and saved one there. So I'm going to say yes to overwrite that. But at this point, I'd have an STL file saved out there in the directory structure where I just placed it. And if I wanted to 3D print this, I would just move that STL file into the slicer that I'm using and go ahead and slice it and 3D print it. So that's pretty much it. I hope this has helped, and I'll talk with you later. Take care.